Now, this account, Learning the Law, made a viral tweet which has an interesting observation, and I've been struggling to put this into words myself, but he did a better job than me, so I'll react to what he said. He points out that the first thing that comes to mind when looking at the character on the left is a sense of calm, purity, style, brightness, and attractiveness. While when you look at the character on the right, you see hatred, chaos, unappealing vibe, and ugliness. Now, what's interesting is that if you complain about this, people on Twitter will just say that you want to be a gunner, that you're only interested in sex, and if you want sex, you should watch pornography and not play video games. And they also say it's like, oh, so you just don't like people of color. Which would be difficult for them to explain why so many critics of this new modern design have no problem with black female characters in anime. They have no problem with Storm from X-Men. They have no problem with Shiva from Resident Evil. They have no problem with black characters from gacha games. So maybe, just maybe, the corporations you so much worship are incapable of casting good-looking female characters. Did that occur to you? Because just like you can cast beautiful people, you can also cast ugly people. And we know that they do this on purpose. And this is, if you watch one of the interviews from the director that made the Witcher TV show, they actually stated that they wanted to cast Jennifer as the actress they did in order to fight against beauty standards. So they wanted to change morality. But apparently it doesn't work that way. Like, you can try to change morality and challenge beauty standards, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, people will just look at your product and they will say it's ugly. You know, it's really awful to say that some people are ugly, but it is true. Whenever you say someone is beautiful, it means that another person is ugly. Now, of course, this is subjective, but then why are you raging at the internet when some people just do not find certain characters attractive? It's subjective, right? So maybe they just don't like it. What I find very interesting with the left is that if you look at a game and you say that the environments look ugly, they don't get upset. Like, they have absolutely nothing to comment on that. You know, you say, yeah, Star Citizen, I generally don't like the environment. It's like, and they'll be like, yeah, okay. Or I don't like the design of the ships. They could be like, oh, well, I guess that's it. But the moment you say you don't like the design of a modern leftist character, they freak the fuck out. Like, they just cannot sleep at night. They cannot comprehend the fact that the characters that they like are disliked by others. And I don't even know if they like it, because I don't see them using these characters as their thumbnails. I don't see them using these characters as their banners. Like, you go on Discord, no one identifies with these characters. They don't cosplay as these characters. So in a way, they're supposed to like them, and they're upset you don't like them, but when you're looking at the evidence, they don't seem to resonate with these characters either. So, yeah, it's not about being a person of color or not. It's just like, the way the design is made is to challenge beauty standards. And instead of accomplishing that, instead of people just, like, changing their mind and saying it's beautiful, they're just saying that your product is shit. So, like, the whole purpose that the academia came up with, it's like, okay, the reason men like women with big fat tits and the reason women like tall men isn't because of something inherent and that you're born that way. No, it's because, like, society teaches you that. Like, you're looking at all the commercials and you see all those beautiful women, and then you're reading magazines and you're playing video games and it's filled with beautiful people. So you're basically trained to believe that beautiful people look like the ones in the magazines, right? So if we change the magazines, if we put ugly people everywhere, if we put mid everywhere, then people are going to change as well. But it turns out that doesn't work, right? And when you call it out, you're not calling out the character, you're calling out their ideology. You're basically saying that their academics are morons, and it completely dismantles their entire worldview because they only get wisdom from the academia. Like, they have no other means of knowing the world except for the academic papers. So if the academics are wrong, then the entire world falls apart, right? So this is why they get so angry when you call out and you're saying, dude, like, all these video games, like, they have ugly character design. So they don't think you're genuine. They think you're a bad thing. They think maybe you're just a gooner. Maybe you just want to masturbate or something. Like, they can't understand that you just don't find the aesthetics pleasing, and that's that. Like, there's nothing more to it. You're just, like, disturbed by the aesthetics. So anyway, this was an interesting part. Then he says that the two types of characters should coexist, but the reality is that they don't. In the modern AAA gaming space, especially in the single-player games outside of RPGs, whenever I share an attractive character, it almost always comes from the same franchise. Outside of the gacha mobiles, characters like the one on the left barely exist these days, and they've been extinguished as the remnants of 2000s. I would say 2016, but yeah, like, if you look at some of the old commercials for gaming, and you look at some of the old gaming culture, the modern people would think it's pornography. Like if you show them a night elf, this, like, skimpily clad dress, you know, like the night elf from World of Warcraft initial trailer, they would think that's porn. Like, they have been so demoralized, they just cannot tell the difference anymore. Like for them, a woman that's fully clothed, regardless if it's a sexy attire or not, they think it's pornography. But if you look at The Last of Us 2, or you look at Baldur's Gate, where you actually have sex scenes and you see naked penises and stuff, that's fine, right? So, like, as long as it's queer, or the women are ugly, you know, like if they're hag-maxed, if it's like the age of like 50, 65, or you have a scene like in The Last of Us 2 where Abby gets bent over, like that's acceptable, right? But don't you dare have like a Lara Croft dressed in a provocative attire, because that's pornographic. So this is where we're at. And this is what people are saying. It's like, why do we need to support this with our cash? Like, it's okay if they want to do it, but why is it the way it is, and why do we have to pay for it? So here you have Learning the Law saying that the important thing is that you could create a character like Eve with a pro-environmental perspective promising a social utopia, and as long as it doesn't cross the line into overt proselytizing, which is very different from telling a story, most people would probably accept your game. In the same way, a story could go into either direction, and that shouldn't be a problem either, but that's the type of narrative that disappeared. There's a reason so many people still love the classic story of a hero saving the princess. It's an ancient tale, but it's been improved upon with incredible games like Shadow of the Colossus. No one thought, wait, I'm mad he didn't ride into the sunset with the princess. That's a story about a man fulfilling his role, fighting the unknown. It never crossed my mind that it could be political. Yeah, like, to be honest, the first time I heard the argument that Mario saving the princess is misogyny, it blew my mind. Like, I was like, who can be this mentally deficient, this level of retardation to actually take that argument seriously? Like, surely the person is trolling, surely that isn't just, but no, like, apparently people genuinely believed that a man risking his life in order to save the person he loves is misogyny. And not only that, but like they started incorporating that thinking into their storytelling to go out of their way and avoid doing this. So when you have the new Prince of Persia coming out, you don't get to play as the prince, it doesn't take place in Persia, and there's a woman trying to rescue the prince. Because they shackle their writing team, that they shackle their artists. They're not allowed to just go wild and create interesting and immersive stories that they would like to read themselves. No, like this is the political correctness, and you are forbidden from creating art. Even though it doesn't hurt anyone, they justify that, no, like, this may somehow potentially hurt someone, so even if it sells, even if it's great, we're going to remove it. And the best example is when they remake previous games like GTA, so they start removing the hookers, they start removing certain scenes, they start removing certain dialogue. Like, that dialogue didn't hurt anyone, right? Like, we already know the influence and the impact those games had on society. We can measure it, and it wasn't harmful, but you're removing it not because the audience wouldn't like it, but because your HR lady doesn't like it. And because the HR lady wants to use those games in order to influence the player rather than to entertain the player. So Learning the Law says that I'll stand by my belief that many games aren't politicized no matter how much bad faith actors try to push the narrative. But now that beauty and sensuality have been so politicized, so much that traditional beauty standards are seen as forbidden, and I would like to make a parenthesis here, there is no such thing as traditional beauty standards. It's still the same standard. It's still being beauty. It's just like the modern standards that they have, they're trying to force it on the market. The market is giving them the middle finger. They're calling the market gooners. But the reality is they're not changing the beauty standards. Like, if you go outside, you're more likely to see women that look like closer to the one on the left than to the right. At least in my country, you know. I don't know how it's like in America and California. Like, maybe they're surrounded by people who are angry all the time, and this is like their experience of what a woman looks like. You can have bisexual characters sleep with 4 others, but if their bust size goes too far, it's tossed out and deemed offensive. That's another good point. You know, like, they keep talking about morality, and it's like, it's not okay to goon because, you know, it's immoral. But in their own video games, you can have a character have sex with multiple people. I'm surprised you can't get an abortion in Baldur's Gate yet. Like, maybe in a DLC or something. But they don't act like mortal people in the slightest. But what they consider immoral is a D-sized chest, even if it's covered up, right? Like, even if a lady, like, has big tits, and they're covered up by a bra, and it's like, fine, no, that's too much. That's too much. The truth is that these ideologies have crossed the line. The moment Western developers step back just a little, allowing for balance and real creative work, people will stop complaining. Yeah, no, I agree with this. The reason they're freaking out over Stellar Blade is because you get to see the night and day difference, just like you get to see it if you play video games from the West from 2016. Just massive night and day difference when it comes to aesthetics. And aesthetics apparently matter. Like, when Capcom did a survey to see what is the second reason on why people would choose a game over another, it was aesthetics. If aesthetics didn't matter, they would just use stick figures. Because why invest, like, so many resources and so much technology into making sure that you have, like, the correct facial structure and you need a mocap voice actor and everything? Like, just have a stick figure then if aesthetics aren't important, right? But they are. They absolutely are, and there is a reason why eye candy used to sell, and it still sells. It's just that they choose to use eyesores instead of it and are wondering why people are rejecting their games. At this point, it's not even political. People just don't like to see ugliness. That's it. It's simple as. This is why gacha games are now printing money. It's not because gacha games are better than AAA games. It's just that there's nothing else. There's nothing to play in AAA. So when people see a gacha game, they're actually attracted by it. And to be fair, if you look at Shift Up and many other companies, it's what they do. They start with a gacha game, they make money, and then they fund their own AAA game. And I think this is going to be the future. Like, the gaming industry is probably going to be dominated by AA companies that manage to make some cash and then are going to release a success. And then the greedy diversity people are going in to try to take some of that cash because the one thing they can't accept is that there's a monetary transaction happen and they're not in the middle. So I do expect that we're going to see even Korean gaming companies eventually start to uglify their characters and inject woke themes in it and shit like that, just like we're seeing with Japan starting. But it takes around 10 years or so. So by that time, hopefully the West is going to clean up house and we're going to see new companies coming up and doing what people used to do, like focus on entertainment rather than focus on ideology. And the character design should actually fit the lore and it should fit the setting they're in rather than to fit some ambiguous definition over what they consider a woman should look like. Let me know what you guys think, though. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.